Numerous top Democrats went out of their way to pander during today's protest. Watch.
We need laws, not nice thoughts and prayers.
The NRA has made me public enemy #1, and I'm proud of it.
Are you going to vote out of office the people who take the gun lobby money and put your safety at risk?
The NRA has held Congress hostage for years now. These young people have shown up to spring us free.
We need a vote now. We need a vote now. We need a vote now.
Dan Bongino was a former Secret Service agent and a contributor to NRA TV, and he joins us tonight. Hey, Dan, so what do you make of this? What do you make of this march?
Well, a couple things are going on here, and your prior guest did it, Nancy Pelosi just did it. A number of those politicians taking advantage of those kids at a rally I thought was designed to reduce targeted school violence, not to pass legislative items on the Democrat agenda. But, you know, shame on us for bringing it up, Tucker. We're the ones who are dismissing the kids, according to the left. But he did two things, your prior guest, which is interesting here. First, he did the appeal to emotion, where they talk about emotion as if emotion is reason in this case. Of course we all feel horrible about what happened in Parkland. That the point stipulated. There's no dispute there. But what he does is he confuses the emotion surrounding the situation with reason and reasonable measures that going forward would reduce school violence. But he did something else that I found particularly disturbing, and they do it too. The liberals do this all the time. They do this utopian fallacy thing where they say things that are clearly nonsensical, designed to make you look foolish. What they do is they say things like, well, we all want fewer guns in schools. Of course we do. But you don't get to pick that. The darn bad guy does, Tucker. The bad guy walks. You think the bad guy walks in there in the school and he goes, oh, listen, there's a sign up that says we want fewer guns in schools. Let me turn around. We don't live in utopia. We don't live in a perfect world. And it's really infuriating having a debate with people who constantly engage in these silly tactics, never want to get anything reasonable done.
Yes.
And they do this strictly to make you look silly.
So how would you feel if your child's teacher were proselytizing about a very specific political view and then took him out of school, put him on a bus, and brought him to a political rally? Wouldn't you have a right to be outraged, since that's not why you're sending him to school?
I'd be pretty pissed, Tucker. I send my kids to school to learn, reading, writing, and arithmetic. I don't expect political indoctrination. Now, I don't listen. If a teacher has a political opinion, and it's happened to me before, I've lived in a couple liberal states. I, unlike a lot of liberals, encourage my daughters to go back to school and make their case and make it in a reasonable fashion. And you know what? If the teacher gives them a bad grade because of it, we can go fight that fight. But that's what reasonable people do. They don't encourage kids to walk out of school during the middle of the day. I mean, you know what kept occurring to me today? What happened? God forbid one of these kids walking out of school was hit by a car or something like that. I don't send my kids to school to engage in a political protest. Come on.
No, and you ought to pull your kids out immediately if they are exploited in the way these kids are being, in my opinion. You ought to pull them out anyway. It's a joke. Dan, thank you. Great to see you.
Yes, sir. Good to see you.
Well, the press were almost unanimous in their positive fawning on critical coverage of today's walkouts. Here's a selection.
I'm already choked up thinking it's kids leading the nation, begging for school safety because the adults have failed them. The power of these young people, the decisions they make, they cannot be bought. They are fearless.
It's pretty incredible to see these students of all different ages, some as young as 14 and 13 years old, having a strong opinion, not wanting to be underestimated about what they have to say.
So we're expecting a lot of very visual, very powerful moments here in the nation's capital as students across the nation, Stephanie, say enough.
Joe Concha writes about media for The Hill and has to watch that crap all day long. We're hiring only dumb people in TV news, I noticed. When did that happen? Did an order go out that only totally non-skeptical, low-IQ people get microphones now? Is that new?
Well, look, Tucker, reporters' jobs, and Stephanie Rule, for instance, was in the first two sound bites you had there, and she's an anchor. She's not a pundit. And
right.
They're there to simply report. And I go back to the movie Broadcast News. And I don't know if you remember, it's from the late 1980s. And William Hurt is this hotshot anchor. And at the end of this report where they're talking about an event where they avoided tragedy, he says, in other words, I think we're all going to be okay now. And this curmudgeon producer, station chief back in the control room, looks up at the monitor and says, who the hell cares what you think? And that's gone completely away now because we're having anchors inject opinion and emotion into these reports instead of letting the pictures tell the story.
You know, I agree, but I guess look. For issues like this, gun control, abortion, the social issues, the press has always been completely on one side. But I've never seen entire TV networks devote their coverage basically as an in-kind contribution to the marches, which is what happened today. I mean, a line definitely has been crossed. This wasn't this way 2 years ago.
Oh, no, this is activism in many quarters at this point, and it is taking a side. I did see one interview today that didn't get a lot of play, and because it came from a different perspective, and it came from somebody who's a very famous person, one of the great NBA players of all time, went to a police academy after he retired and became an unofficial deputy, and his name is Shaquille O'Neal. And here's what he told WABC Radio in New York. He said, quote, "The government should give law enforcement more money. Give more money, you recruit more people. And the guys that are not ready to go onto the streets, you put them in front of schools. You put them behind schools. You put them inside of schools." Shaquille O'Neal, goes on to argue that banning guns simply is not something that will work alone because, A, there's 300 million of them out there. And this is the type of solution that deserves many, many different ideas being brought forward. And instead, what we're seeing now is the media pushing one idea forward, which is if you ban guns, you solve the problem. And this is much more comprehensive than that, Tucker.
So I saw some, I mean, if we're going to ban guns, we should start with the bodyguards at network news divisions. You know what I mean? Let's kind of spread the pain around here a little bit. It shouldn't just be widows in West Texas who have to give up their protection. It should be nightly news anchors. Viacom shut down its programming entirely and went black. I've never seen a channel turn down advertising dollars. That's how strongly they felt about this.
Oh, yeah, I wrote about this earlier this morning. Actually, Viacom is a media company, and they own several networks, cable networks anyway, whether that be a Black Entertainment Network or whether it be also Comedy Central, whether it be Nickelodeon, MTV for 17 minutes at 10 a.m., 17 being the number of people that were killed, of course, in Parkland. They ceased all regular programming, and in Nickelodeon's case, they said, you know, we're shutting down because the kids are leading, and we're here to support them. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what they said. And again, that's advocacy, that's activism. You could agree or disagree with it, but at the same time, this was an unprecedented event that we saw via Viacom this morning.
Yeah, it's also cheap moral preening, and if they really cared, they'd pay the college scholarships of everybody at Parkland. But I don't think they will somehow. Joe, great to see you.
By the way, do you get a bodyguard? Because I don't get a bodyguard. I don't have anything for that matter.
Cable, man.
Just saying.
I'm not allowed to answer that. No, we're fine. Thanks, Joe. Texas just won a big victory over sanctuary cities in the courts, and it could mean jail time for pro-sanctuary politicians. That is next up.